Hey YouTube, new episode of The Educated Barbarian, and today we're attacking book 3, which is the last book of the Hagakure, and it's going to end our cycle on Bushido and samurai literature. The next book is going to be the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, so make sure that you read the book first, because if you don't, I might influence you with my lecture, and I want to avoid that. So let's get on to book 3. Book 3, as I said in the last episode, is my least favorite book of the Hagakure because it's a lot of anecdotes that I can personally not relate to my life. A lot of things that tend to go a little bit too long, a lot of tangents, and I personally like the snappy and short maxims of the Book of Five Rings of Yamamoto because it gives me room to extrapolate on them. And when the author extrapolates for me, I don't really have anything to say, and I don't really want these episodes to end up just being lectures where I read the book to you, because you can do that as well. But let's start still, because I have found certain passages, certain sentences and segments that are interesting, but they are few and far between. There are 4 different types of retainers: swift, sluggish, sluggish, swift, 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 and sluggish, sluggish. According to Katsuhige, the swift retainers can understand instructions quickly and carry them out in an expedient manner. These are the best vassals, but are few and far between. Men like Fukushi Kishizaemon are of this caliber. The sluggish swift retainers are slow in understanding, but are able to execute their orders quickly. Nakano Kazuma is a good example. Swift sluggish retainers are diligent in obeying instructions, but are often slow at completing their duties. These are many. The rest all fall into the category of sluggish. So at the very top you have the elite, who are quick learners and who can quickly apply, and who are also very fast in their execution. There are certain people that will grasp a concept fast, but the way they apply the concept will not be fast. And then you have the other way around, people who take a long time to accumulate knowledge and to actually be able to be competent, but when they are competent, they are quite quick. And it's interesting to see that the categorization of the workforce already happened back in the day with terms that would be deemed a little bit unscientific with our eyes, with the swift and sluggish. But we still do that to this day. I mean, you have managers that will openly tell you that they categorize people between type A and type B personalities. And the reason why this is done, especially by upper management and the upper echelon, is because in reality, as inhuman as it sounds, when you have to handle a large amount of people, the workforce becomes just a number. It's a group of persons, and you can't really get to know them really deeply, and you can't really connect with them all, because it would just take the entirety of your day to connect with 20 people. So it's easier to have those clearly cut and defined categories. The issue is that, of course, it quickly devolves into stereotypes, and humans are much more complex than that, and that can lead to pretty gross mismanagement. So for yourself, since you are human in your daily life, try to avoid that as much as possible, because I have found that trying to think of humans in broad terms often leads to disappointments, and it leads to disillusions, because it's just not the way reality goes. And I also think that when it comes to looking at humanity, you want to have a positive outlook, because you're really looking at your brothers and sisters. And if you just think of them as sheep or as a herd with no personality, you're going to develop within you a disgust for humanity, and that's going to be hurting you first and foremost. If his lordship was to be presented with an Inca, he would become fixated on his enlightenment, and the lord-follower relationship will unravel through his condescension of his retainers' opinions as if they were insects. So in the context of the Hagakure, what Yamamoto is talking about here is there once was a lord who became very interested in matters of spirituality, and he started to pursue the teachings of Buddha. And eventually the monk that was teaching him was going to bestow upon him a prize, which here is called the Inca, and it's a sign of enlightenment. So it's like a black belt, for example. It's a black belt in Buddhism. The issue is that one of the retainer, seeing that, decided to go see the monk to tell him to not give him the Inca, because if he did, he was afraid that his lord would become fixated on that newly found enlightenment, and he would, one, start to separate himself from the realm of the living, which is technically what enlightenment is. You have to separate yourself from your possessions, but not just material possessions. Things like feelings, love also need to be put away, meaning that you need to exist outside of the realm of men. And as Shoujo has said multiple times, a samurai needs to be spiritual, he needs to be detached, but if he's not attached at the same time to earthly things, he cannot be a samurai, because Bushido is also the pursuit of earthly things through your training, through your ascending of the ranks, etc. So the warrior convinced the monk to not do it by threatening to kill him. The monk, of course, said yes. But what I find interesting too is that beyond that separation from the human realm, what the retainer was also fearing was that his lord would think himself as superior. And you might think to yourself, well, that's strange, the lord is superior. The retainer, the samurai, they obey the lord, so he's already in the hierarchy way higher than them. He's like a god. Yes, but there are different types of superiority. If you serve someone because you respect them and because you are giving your life and soul to them, there might exist, yes, a relationship of superiority, but it's willing, and also you're getting something back, because most likely the Lord is going to consider you with great respect because you're a loyal vassal. But if it's the serving of a lord who doesn't consider earthly things as valuable, and who thinks that people who haven't reached the enlightenment are worthless, then not only are you giving your life for someone, but that person doesn't even really care about you. They think of you as an insect. So in terms of hierarchies, you will find that there are healthy hierarchies and there are unhealthy hierarchies. A healthy hierarchy is one where the people at the bottom look at the people at the top and say, okay, I see what they're at the top, because they've worked for longer, they're better than me, and the established order looks fair. Any other type of hierarchy is going to be eventually destroyed or crumble down by itself, because the people at the bottom who make the base are going to pull the people at the top down because they think that they don't belong there. There's a lot of different possibilities when it comes to actually inversing the pyramid. You can have corruption at the top that crumbles down and that trickles down to the bottom, etc. But in general, these are all of the types of hierarchies that cannot succeed. And of course, hierarchies are super important because they make up our societies, they make up the way human functions when you put them in a group. There are always hierarchies. Some people don't like that. You also always have those people who say, oh, humans don't work like that, we don't have ranks, we don't have alphas and betas. We do have that. It's just that the systems that we have are much more complicated and are volatile because they vary. A wolf, what does a wolf do? I mean, he's going to breed, he's going to eat, he's going to sleep. So the context in which a wolf can be alpha or beta is super limited. For a human, it's not, but wherever you are, as long as you're with people, with other humans, you exist within a hierarchy. And if you've hanged out with a group of people, you know that. You might have a group of people where you might be middle tier, and you know exactly who in that group is the alpha, meaning that that person is the most important person of the group, and the group gravitates around them. And you might be that person in a different group. Settings change your status, but the status still exists. Just because they can be variable doesn't mean that they don't exist. So this is speaking about a retainer that was witnessing the castle of his master being on fire. One of the attendants declared, I shall enter the flames and save his treasures. Lord Soma and the other retainers chortled incredulously. How can you salvage it now when the building is engulfed by this fire? This retainer was never effusive in service, nor had he ever been exceptionally useful, but for some reason his lord was fond of him as he was diligent. By no means have I been an effective servant to his lordship because of my clumsiness. Nevertheless, I have always been ready to sacrifice my life for something useful, should the opportunity arise. I believe that time is now. With that, he stormed into the fire. As soon as the inferno had been put out, Lord Soma instructed his men to find his body. They searched through the burnt ruins and finally located his chair remains in the garden next to the residence. Blood gushed from his stomach as they turned his prostrated body over. Evidently, he had slit open his belly and inserted the documents inside, protecting it from the flames. Henceforth, it became known as the Shiketsu, or Blue Genealogy. So that retainer went in the fire knowing he was going to die, and when he located the treasure, which was a document of the genealogy of the family tree, he cut himself open to hide the document inside so that it wouldn't burn. That story is a representation of the extreme amount of dedication and the insane sacrifices that samurais were ready to undertake for their masters. This is a level of dedication and devotion that you will scarcely see nowadays. Most people are not even that devoted to themselves, meaning that in a weird twist of ironic fashion, most people, for their own life and their own sakes, will not be ready to go that far. They will lay down and let life take them whichever direction because they won't put up a fight. They just won't. So expand that to the fact that most people will also not do that for their wife or their husband, their family, brothers, friends, and you have a grim picture. Of course, this amount of crazy mindset is rare, and you might also say that it's against self-preservation, and you would be right. There's always a balance to be struck, but most people are way too on the side of the let's do nothing, and very few people are too kamikaze in life. When a warrior in his unit was wounded in battle and the stream of blood would not clot, Tozo ordered him to drink watered-down dung of a gray-haired horse. The injured warrior protested, "Although life is precious, how can I drink horse dung?" Tozo overheard his aside and responded, "You are a truly brave warrior, and what you say makes sense. The real meaning of loyalty, however, means you are duty-bound to try and stay alive to contribute to our Lord's victory. Now I will drink some also." After gulping down a mouthful of the concoction, he gave the cup to the wounded warrior, who consumed the remedy gleefully. It is said he quickly recovered from his injuries. So first off, I don't think drinking horse poop is going to help you heal. It seems like it was a remedy at the time. But the important part is not that. The important part is a contradiction that a lot of people are going to face at some point or the other when they study Bushido, and they'll think, okay, so Bushido dictates that I have to lay down my life, but it also dictates that I have to maintain honor at all costs. So if I'm faced with a situation, for example here, where my life is to be taken from me so I lose the opportunity to use it to protect my Lord, but saving my life would make the action dishonorable, what do I do? And of course, with things like this, you quickly see that absolute teachings lead to absolute contradictions. And it's also what I like about this book. It does sometimes tell you things that seem quite clear-cut, but it always provides examples afterwards to show you that there's always a way out. If you were to follow the laws of Bushido to a T, you would be wasting your life away. Meaning that there is a level of flexibility and interpretation that is going to have to happen for you to actually be able to live your life as a samurai back then and now, if you want to apply those teachings to your life. And some people might say, well, it's cheating or it's a way to get away from not respecting the rules. I wouldn't say that's true, because there's always an absolute teaching that needs to be respected above all. And in this case, for example, it's not wasting your life away when you could be saved. Shoujo tells you that if you need to go and protect the weak and die for it, do it. But if you protect the weak and after that you're wounded, he's not telling you to just stay wounded and lose blood and die. He's telling you to get fixed so you can fight again. And that's this situation here. The warrior was out of the battle, he was injured, he was ashamed of having to drink that concoction to survive. And Tozo told him, look, your goal is to survive. So no matter what happens, surviving is more important in this situation than preserving what you perceive to be your honor. It's a case-by-case situation, but it's always interesting to think about those contradictions. What unreasonable fellows you are. Although I didn't do it on purpose, I express regret as a courtesy, as it was my sando after all. Not to accept my apology and accuse me in public in such a way is unforgivable. There are too many people in here. Step outside. I will cut you all down to size. These are the words of a samurai who was walking in a town. His sandal, his shoe slipped and it hit someone. And he very nicely went and grabbed his shoe and said, I'm sorry. And the person made a scene, and that's what he told them. And he followed that up by walking towards them with his katana, and the men were overwhelmed by his spirit and hesitated. Kyujibei, the man, continued in a gentler tone. Just accept my apology. If you don't, you will lose your head, and so will I. Hush and enjoy the festival. Then he put his hat back on and departed. There was nothing third-hearted about his conduct. He must have been a very brave man. So again, same thing as I just expressed. You might think to yourself, a true samurai would have just killed them all. No, because if you kill people back in the feudal days of Japan, unless it's on the battlefield, you broke a rule, meaning that you unsheathed your sword and you killed. So you're going to get killed as well. That's what he means when he says, I'm going to lose my head. So in this case, for him to be brave, quote unquote, and attack these people would have meant losing his life for nothing. And so he went and he apologized like a gentleman. And when they refused to take the apology and started to try to ignite a fight that he knew would lead to their death and his death, he had to intimidate them. So he used his spirit to make them step down, to protect them and to protect himself. But by protecting himself, what he was really doing, he was protecting his lord, because he was saving his life for a better purpose. And again, that's an application of Bushido that Shoujo says is brave. It's not cowardice. When I was a young man, I participated in the Arima offensive, but in retrospect, whether one is able to achieve a meritorious feat in combat depends on the course of events. Your preparedness in battle is what matters. By preparedness, I mean the closer you sit to the enemy's camp, the more brave people will think you are. It's something that I appreciate about Shoujo is that he takes into account luck. Because in reality, in life, luck is an extremely important aspect and value. When a lot of people talk about privileges, for example, what they talk about is luck. That's being born with blessings. And the reason why people don't use the term luck is that luck is random and privilege can be systemized. The thing is, you can clearly see that luck cannot be systemized. And since these people, and that's a different story, but there's an agenda behind that because certain people want to push the idea that certain groups have advantages that they stole or that shouldn't exist in the first place. If they were to have to think of it in terms of luck, they would realize that there's nothing they can do. And in reality, that's the end word of this entire question. There is nothing one can do. If you want equality between humans, you better go to Mars and live with plants, because in reality, equality will never happen. It's not possible. We are born as men unequal. Society and laws try to make men equal, but it fails because it cannot contest and compete with biology and life. And that's also what Shoujo expresses here. Yeah, you can be a great warrior, but if you lack the luck, you're just going to get an arrow to the head and you're going to die. That's it. But he also says that there are certain things that you can do that don't have anything to do with luck. If you want to prove that you're ready and a good warrior, you stay closer to the enemy's camp and you attack when you can attack. And these are, outside of the context of battle, applications of one's will to your life that will make the difference between a defeat or a victory, between inaction or action. And that's what counts. You cannot control your luck, so don't even worry about it. People who try to control luck, fate, destiny are losing and wasting their time. You cannot control those things. Those are factors that will never be under man's control. It's not possible. No matter how much science we advance, no matter if we become half robots, there are still going to be some luck involved in life. Let's see where we're standing in terms of time. Oh boy. Okay, well, we're going to stop here. As you see with this book, I don't like it per se because it's anecdotes, But one thing that it's really good at, and it's also a sign that the book is super important, it shouldn't be taken away, and it needs to be read, is that it sort of offers nuances to the rest of the book. Because as I said, the rest of the book tends to be, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this. Here, it gives anecdotes that you can relate to the teaching so that you can better understand how to apply them in real situations. So that's actually quite great. So I'm going to stop here. And we are at 40, so that I know where to start next time. And a quick estimation tells me that we might have 2 or 3 episodes left. I'm going to try and make it 2 because I'm really excited to start Stoicism with you guys. Thank you for watching again. Have a good day.